Welcome everyone to this video where we have the matchup between Magnus Carlsen and Levon Aronian. It's the tiebreak clash. The arbiter does the draw of lots and Magnus Carlsen gets the white pieces in game 1. What are these two players fighting for? Well, they're fighting for the 4th place in their group, which actually means a lot because if you finish 4th, then you go to the upper bracket, while if you lose here, you go into the lower bracket. And the big consequence of that is that if you are not in the upper bracket, you can no longer fight for the first and second place in this entire Las Vegas Grand Slam of freestyle chess, and that means so much to Magnus Carlsen. I'm sure it means a lot to Levon Aronian as well, but for Magnus, he has never really been eliminated from the chance of winning a Grand Slam so soon. We have Fiona here, who's the host of the show. She is welcoming a guest to pick up a ball which would tell us the freestyle position, and two players are waiting for the games to begin. It's two games of 5 minutes plus 2 seconds increment. In case of 1-1 tie, we would go into Armageddon, and in order to pick up the position, I was incredibly lucky that I got a chance to select the the position, and I took a break from my commentating to just come here and to pick this up. So big thank you to Fiona and to the freestyle team for giving me this honor, because I personally think this entire match is definitely a very historical one. And I think the position that came up was 482 or something like that, and gave the ball back. And now the players get 5 minutes to acquaint themselves with the position, and we're about to get rolling here. You can see Magnus gets his headphones on. Levon is ready for the fight. 5 minutes plus 2 seconds increment. The first game about to begin, and let's get it started. A handshake, and off we go. Magnus opens the game with pawn to c4. The English opening, but the pieces are all scrambled up on the last rank. e3 opens up the bishop. Now, I think that this position is closer to a normal game of chess because of these 4 pieces being in the exact position of what we see in traditional chess, which is the reason why here it's easier for both sides to play, for Magnus as well as for Levon. Knight to f6. The difference, of course, is on the queen side here, where the bishop, queen, rook and knight are there, but the knight could easily go to c3, pawn to b3 and queen to c2, so you get a very normal position here. Magnus taking his time, he brings his knight out to f3, and now pawn to b6, opening up the path of the bishop on this long diagonal. Bishop e2, and here Lev can go for the double fianchetto with g6, bishop g7. He could also just continue with e6. He goes for g6 here. Pawn to g6. And Magnus can now simply castle here. Yes, he simply castles it out. And Levon has this very interesting try, which is knight g4. When you have an attack here directly on h2, so you're threatening bishop takes knight, bishop takes bishop, and a mate on h2. But I guess Magnus can go g3 and all is well there. And which is the reason why Levon has paused a bit for this move. He's not rushing into his decision of what to do. He would, I think, make a very careful choice at this point of time. And he goes bishop to g7, just getting his bishop out. Pawn to b4 played by Magnus, pushing the pawn forward and opening up the bishop here. Black castles, knight comes out to c3. And wonder how Levon is going to continue here. Do you want to take on b4? I believe that would give white a very decent position by attacking this e7 pawn. So maybe as Levon you don't want to take on b4. But what else are the possibilities here? That's a good question. Magnus has slightly more time on the clock. And Levon has 3 minutes and closing in on the 3-minute mark, has to be careful of his time. A good decision can be knight to e6 to defend this, but he goes knight to c6. But wouldn't that allow Magnus to actually push the pawn forward, gain more space and push the knight away? Well, maybe Levon is happy with this knight here, putting constant pressure on the c4 pawn. So yeah, maybe there are other ways to play. You could take on c5. So Magnus taking his time for this important decision. He has roughly a minute extra on the clock. And I'm sure he's tempted between taking the pawn and pushing the pawn. He decides to take and plays his pawn to h3. Very calm move here. Just getting rid of back rank issues. And we might see a lot of trades happening along the b file. Like the queen can take the queen. And then the rook could move to b8. The rooks could get traded on the b file as well. Levon does take on b1, rook takes on b1, and now pawn to d6 played. So Levon very happy with the setup that he has here. Magnus could potentially double his rooks on the b file. And the other ideas do include somewhere playing the pawn to d4, but I'm a bit apprehensive as it weakens the c4 pawn a bit. You know, there's pressure here. The knight could jump and attack here. So pawn to d4 is something that should be played with great care. Magnus goes d3, and this is a very useful move because with d3 you can swivel your knight to d2 to b3. Bishop could pop out to f3. The knight goes back to d7. And he opens up the bishop here. The knight jumps to d5. And Levon takes. Rook takes. And I guess kicking away the knight makes quite some sense here with e6. The other idea is to play rook b8, taking the b file. He plays e6, knight comes back to c3, and now knight to b6 played here by Levon. Very slow and steady game. Rook comes back to b1, the rook goes to d8, and Magnus brings his rook to c1, calmly preparing what I believe is a very important break in the center with pawn to d4. Now if white ever goes pawn to a4, then the black knight jumps into b4. So Levon goes rook to d7. He would like to double the rooks perhaps on the b file. And Magnus now has a choice between bringing his king into the game, king f1, king e1. There's also this knight d2 idea which we were talking about. He does go for it. Knight d2 on the board. And Levon goes king to g7. And what's going to be the next way to proceed? You can see both players being very careful here, especially knowing what the stakes are. Knight to b3 played. And I guess for Levon it's only a question of waiting here, because you can't push d5, your c5 pawn is a bit weak. You can bring your king back to e7. There could be some potential ideas of playing on the king side with your pawns here, f5 and so on. But Levon has to speed up. His time is 1 minute 7 seconds only. Rook b8 played by Levon. But should Magnus now go for f4, king f2, g4, bishop f3? These look like natural moves. Nothing spectacular, nothing out of the ordinary. But here, when you have the extra time on the clock, you want to play moves that keep putting pressure on your opponent and don't commit to something. But Magnus could also think about a move like d4 in the center, although truth be told, it doesn't feel like a great decision. Yes, you are well placed for d4 with your bishop defending c4 and also the knight controlling d4, but d4 takes and pawn to d5 might be interesting to explore. And Magnus also taking a lot of time here because he wants to make sure that the decision he takes is in line with the position but also the tournament situation. Magnus not making a decision, making use of all his extra time here. That's very interesting time management by Magnus. He's not kind of rushing it, trying to put Levon under pressure. He's more like, I want to find the correct path to play. He goes d4, Levon was ready, takes and pushes d5. Fantastic chess. If you take cd, then knight d5, and already white is in bit of a trouble because of the isolated pawn. So Magnus may not take the pawn here, it's not a good decision, but then you can push the pawn. But in fact, pushing the pawn feels even worse. He pushes, and in fact now Levon not only has a better position but is also ahead on the clock, 20 seconds ahead. Magnus has pushed a bit too much and has landed in a very difficult position. Now taking the knight is wrong because after pawn takes, the knight is attacked and the central pawn falls, a very important pawn in the position. And so Magnus goes knight to d1 here. He brings his knight back to the d1 square, and maybe somewhere he wants to take on c4, take here, and rook takes c4. But Levon comes in with his rook defending the knight on c4. What should Magnus do here? A lot of pressure on him. The pressure on the d4 pawn is also real. Maybe the best decision is to play f3 and king f2. Goes knight to b2, but that's a mistake. That's a huge mistake by Magnus. I think he's completely missed the fact that after takes, knight takes d4 is possible. Rook takes because the knight is pinned here. Oh, terrible. He goes bishop d1, defending the knight, but now you're simply a pawn down. Rook c7, fantastic move, attacking here. Rook d2 played to attack the knight. You can take on b3, definitely seems like a good move, but you can also go back. Knight to c6 played. He goes bishop e2. Magnus trying to improve, but he knows that his position is terrible. He's a pawn down. Black central pawns are going to roll down the board. He goes bishop b7. Magnus plays rook to c3. I wonder what's Magnus's plan here. Maybe he just has 4 seconds left. Levon has 22 seconds. He jumps with his knight to e5. And a3, rook goes to a4. He brings his knight into the center. The knight jumps once again to c4. Bishop takes, rook takes, pawn takes. And now knight to b5. He takes the pawn on c5. The knight comes back to c3. In a way, Levon is now not just 1 pawn up, but 2 pawns up. f3, king comes up. White brings the king. King e3. Levon 11 seconds. Magnus has 12 seconds. Magnus has sped up like crazy. He has Now more time on the clock, but Levon Aronian has the clearly winning position. He takes rook c8 played, and now bishop b3 defending the pawn would make it 3 pawns up, but he gives back 1 pawn for the ease of, just playing freely now. Rook a3, king goes back, rook to b3, offering a trade. He goes rook a4, check, king here, takes, rook takes a7, and h4 played, rook goes to h2, attacking the h4 pawn. The rook comes back, defending, king g7, black is winning here, rook b4, he goes rook h3, and now the king comes back, bishop g4. What a nice move by Levon. After takes, rook takes c3, he's managed to trade off the minor pieces. The rook endgame is winning because he's 2 pawns up, and Magnus now has 20 seconds on the clock, but with 2 pawns down in the endgame, it seems almost impossible that he would be able to hold this one. Rook d4, king goes to g3, he gives a check just to ensure that the king is cut off now, and rook to d4. He goes rook to b8, the rook comes back to d7. Levon is preparing the move f6. He plays f6, goes check, king goes back, fg, hg, and now the e5 pawn is hanging, so he defends it. Rook e3, and king h2, he brings the king closer, and king h3, he goes rook e1, king g2, rook e3. And now what's the winning idea here for black? Levon has to play it a bit carefully. Goes rook f3, very nice move. If takes, rook f5, so gives a check, rook comes back, and here it's totally lost, because after here rook f5, it's winning. Magnus resigns the game, and the crowd erupts into applause. 1-0 to Levon Aronian. The crowd is quickly filling up, and we have Annie there, Levon's better half, who has arrived for the match, and Magnus Carlsen is definitely in trouble. He is now forced to win with the black pieces. Levon just needs a draw in order to advance to the upper bracket, while Magnus needs to win and then enforce the Armageddon. Magnus doesn't seem to be in the best of spirits here, of course, after that loss in the previous round, in the previous game. He's trying to focus hard, and the position is to be determined here. So we will have a new freestyle position picked out, and this has happened. The players got 5 minutes to study the position, and I think it's time now to begin the second game. Super critical one, and if we study the position, we look at it: knight, rook, king, rook, knight, queen, bishop, bishop. And generally when two bishops are in the corner, you want to open them up. Handshake and f4. With this move, Levon opens up the bishop on g1, knight comes out to b6, knight to b3, and Magnus is a bit surprised here. He goes f5, pawn to g3, g6 played, and now will Levon break in the center? Yes, he plays e4, and maybe Magnus now has a small chance right out of the opening to equalize. This looks so natural, right after taking, it feels like d4 and white should be better. Magnus does take fe, bishop e4 on the board, but now after e5, which is a fine move, the queen is opposite the queen, and you can't take the pawn because the queen on f1 is hanging. That's the problem. And Magnus trying to calculate here whether the move e5 is better or g5. Maybe g5 might suit his tournament situation better because he is in a must win and he doesn't want to create symmetry here. He does go e5. And Levon now has a few options. He goes knight to d3, a very interesting move, putting pressure on the e5 pawn. Rook is now defending the queen, so you can actually take the pawn. And if Magnus decides to take on f4, then the knight is still protecting the f4 pawn. Let's see what Magnus comes up with now. A move like d5 wouldn't make sense because after bishop g2 you have pressure on e5, and if you play e4, then I have bishop h3, which creates a lot of pain here. So he goes knight to d6, attacking the bishop, and bishop comes back to g2. Once again, if you push e4 here, then maybe knight e5 is what he wants to do. So Magnus takes, but maybe pushing the pawn was better, considering that you are in a must win. E takes f4 played, but we all know how good Magnus is in simple symmetrical positions. E takes f4, and I think taking with the queen makes sense. He takes it so that if queen is traded here, white is very happy. White just needs a draw. So Magnus, will he avoid the queen trade? No, he goes bishop c4, a very interesting move. And the point of this move is, of course, to take on d3 and spoil the white structure. So Levon is now considering what to do here with his knight. Queen takes queen is an option, but then the rook gets the open file here. And then after long castle, the other rook gets the open file. So perhaps, I don't know if taking is the best decision or not. Levon down to 4 minutes, like down below 4 minutes, while Magnus has 3 minutes 13 seconds. Magnus also being put under quite some time pressure. I think the time pressure will come from the fact that Magnus has to win, you know. That's a major stress point for Magnus. Sometimes you can't make your natural moves because that would lead to perhaps a very, very easy quality. Then again, Magnus has won on several occasions on demand, and here he seems to have gotten into Levon's head somehow, where Levon isn't making his move. It could be queen takes queen, it could be rook f1, it could be rook e1, any of them. He takes the queen, rook takes, and plays his knight to c5. Interesting move. Where is the knight heading? No idea, but does put pressure on d7, e6, b7. Magnus Carlsen is now deciding how should he proceed in this position. He goes long castle. Very nice move. Connecting the rooks. One rook already is on the open file. The other rook is ready to come on the open file as well. Levon plays rook e1 to control one of those files. And what is Magnus going to do next? Magnus taking a bit of his time here. And now decides to place bishop to d5. Magnus realizing that this is a key bishop for white. And if he manages to trade it, then he might get more free play in the position. Levon takes, knight takes d5. Now, how will Levon play? I guess one idea is to also trade bishop d4, take. but I think the bishop is doing an incredible job of defending the f2 square and stopping the rook from entering. So he goes long castles here. And Magnus goes pawn to b6, knight jumps into e4, offering a trade of knights. Takes on e4, rook takes e4, and now pawn to c5. Magnus has 2 minutes 3 seconds. Levon Aronian has 2 minutes 34 seconds. This move c5 I really liked because it limits the white knight and also makes square for the black king to enter the game. c3 played very quickly by Levon, and now king c7 by Magnus. He goes up king c2, king comes up to c6. I wonder what will Levon do next. He goes knight c1, and I like this move because the knight on b3 was anyway a bit dominated here. So why not go knight c1 with the idea of knight d3 or knight e2? Two minutes 22 seconds for Levon Aronian, 1 minute and a few seconds for Magnus Carlsen. Magnus has to create something here. The position is too simplified to fool or trick a player of Levon Aronian's caliber. Rook f7, the knight jumps to d3. Maybe threatening a check here. I don't know how good it is if black trades. Rook takes. Black goes rook to f8, rook d f8 on the board. And now Levon is considering what should be his next move. He has to tread very carefully. He goes bishop e3, Magnus goes bishop g7. Black can potentially take on e3 at the right moment. So Levon under a bit of pressure here. His time is also running down. I think he's come down below a minute on the clock. And right now, what is Levon going to do? He goes bishop f4. He has 1 minute 24 seconds. Closing in on that 1 minute mark. Magnus going down below a minute. Plays d6. Rook goes to e1. And king to d7. Magnus is hoping he'll get his opportunity soon here. But Levon Aronian has 1 minute and a few seconds here. It's a tough position. Tough position when facing Magnus. A small space edge with this pawn on c5, knight on d5. He goes a4, trying to stop the queenside expansion. And Magnus now thinking about his next move. Taking on f4 makes no sense, as after knight f4, white is doing quite okay. So he goes h6, h4, stopping g5. Rook e7 played. And so Magnus trying to trade a pair of rooks in order to loosen the control over the e file. Levon has to make a decision here. He has slightly more time on the clock. Magnus down to 35 seconds, while Levon, who had just about a little more than a minute, is also now closing in on the 30-second mark. Knight takes 32 seconds for Levon, 36 seconds for Magnus Carlsen. Whoa, Levon, what are you thinking? Come on, make a move, make a move. Maybe b4, maybe b3. Maybe just improve your king. He goes bishop e3, and Magnus has to decide where to go now. Magnus has had 36 seconds before this move and now down to 14 seconds. Rook to g1. He's defending somehow. The knight goes to f5 and bishop e4, c4. He goes knight d1, goes back with his knight. Magnus gaining some space, but the rook is attacked. He goes here, king d1, and now bishop e5. Knight comes to g2. A good move there by Levon. Takes, knight takes. He pushes his pawn to g5, takes, and now knight h3, attacking both the rook and the pawn. The rook goes to h2. He takes the pawn, and Magnus is so unhappy here. d5, g4. He brings his knight back to d6, and now he's playing super fast because he has 10 seconds. He's trying to outwit Levon on time, but it's not easy. Levon is pushing his pawn forward. It's going to g7 all the way. Now all that he needs is a knight to come in and checkmate the black king. Rook b1, and he goes knight g5, offering a trade here of knights. And this is almost as good as giving up because he needed to win. A draw was not enough for Magnus. Knight at 7. He goes knight d7. He plays knight f8. He wants to trade the knights. But Magnus is like, no, I'll play on. I'll fight. I'll fight till the end. Rook g5. d3 takes, gives a check. King here misses a huge opportunity, by the way, where there was a knight fork. It takes, pushes the pawn forward. Levon has equalized here. Can he manage to hold Magnus in this wild game? He goes rook b1 and knight c8, attacking that b pawn. He takes on a4, rook c4, knight goes back to b2, check. And king f5 check. If I check, king h5. And now both sides moving super quick. King comes up, knight to c6, attacking the rook, but now you can see Levon is 2 pawns up. Goes rook c5 and Magnus resigns. Levon Aronian with this move has won it. Magnus Carlsen has been relegated to the lower bracket and Levon Aronian makes it to the upper bracket.
Eli? Eli. So that's it? The whole thing's over?
You came in the perfect moment.
Oh my god. I almost died.
Sure. Yeah, sure.
So we'll do one with ChessBase
Yeah.
walking
Sure.
to the.
Let's come through.
Levon, just want to know your raw thoughts. What was going on when you had the white pieces in the second game?
Yeah, I thought it should be all right for me. I got a bit passive, and Magnus is particularly dangerous in this type of positions. Yeah, but somehow things worked out. Yeah, I wasn't so happy with the way I was playing the end game, but at least I was playing fast.
The last time you played a freestyle event, it did not go your way. But this time you eliminated the champion, the leader of the Grand Slam. How does that feel as from the confidence point of view?
Yeah, I mean, it feels very good because Magnus is generally very good in blitz, so beating him, yeah, makes me happy.
And all these years you have played against each other. Does this freestyle win mean something different?
Well, it's just two blitz games. I mean, I wouldn't make big conclusions out of it, but still, you know, winning against such a competitive guy like Magnus is always pleasant because I know that it means a lot for him. So,
Right.
just that sheer feeling that you're beating somebody who really has to lose is already a good feel. Thanks.
And how does it feel to have your family backing you up in this tournament? They are all here. They are here to support you. Does that give you extra motivation to do well?
Absolutely. I want to make my daughter, my wife, and my in-laws proud, and my biggest fans.
Hisham was with you, my friend. You should watch it. My reaction. I'm like the legend. The legend. This is my. You're receiving a bonus on the wire. Check your account.
It's so funny.
Thank you, Levon. Wonderful show. Thank you.
Hey, thanks, John.
Раз, поздравляю. Nice shot. How are you feeling?
Suicide of the world. Hi, good are you? Yeah? Oh gosh, this was like
His commentary was absolutely hilarious. You have to watch it on the stream. He was like jumping up and down, and he was like, "Hey, here he is! I'm just raving about you." It's like
Levon,
it's like
I'm your biggest support. You know, I gave so much energy to you. You have no idea. I was praying. This is just.
no, you were not praying, you were jumping like a monkey.
No. I lost it to games of sacrifice.
Oh my god, I really
Oh.
Why?
so good.
Look at your daughters.
That will go good.
Oh, surprise!
You know, Levon, what I said in the broadcast. Now you put your material and you deserve to qualify.
Yes. So you just
Patek.